are on silent. If at any time anyone needs the restroom, you can go out that back door and then make a right and a left. If you need anything other than that we can help you with, please let us know by just putting your hand up, and Ms. Priscilla will come and see what it is you need assistance with. So now we'll get ready to start the symposium. This is the first one that we hosted. Hopefully we'll make it an annual event. The purpose of the symposium is for us to do more outreach with our landlords, the existing landlord and potential landlords. Because it's very important that we foster the partnership that we have so that we can enlarge the affordable housing footprint in the county of Monroe. We want to be more transparent and provide any type of clarification needed in the Housing Choice Voucher program on this section. So to do that, we have key staff sitting up here. Each one is going to get up and they're going to talk about the program in detail, either one particular part that is of special interest to you as a landlord, or give you an overview of the program as a whole, just so everybody can become more knowledgeable of what a voucher is, what it takes to get one, how it works, and the entirety of the process. Once they finish their segment, we'll open the floor up for questions. If you have a question, just raise your hand. Anyone on Zoom, if you have a question, just put it in the chat and the staff will make sure that it gets asked. We'll do that briefly. If it seems like that we're gonna have a lot of questions, please write down the rest of your questions and we'll hold them to the end, because at the end of the program, we're gonna have an entire hour that's gonna be dedicated to questions and answers. And some of the questions they might not be able to answer because maybe the answer is gonna come up in the next part. If that's so, they'll just tell you that the next person will be able to answer. So again, the main thing that we really want to do is we want to work on building the relationship we have with the landlords that we currently work with, which is in excess of 1,000. We want to try to grow more relationships with potential landlords. And we just want to make a more equal, affordable housing market for the county of Monterey. And I think we can do that with the voucher program if we all work together, and especially if both parts understand how vital it is and the pros and cons of it. By doing that, we can work through the challenges together, and those challenges can become opportunities for all of us here in person, on Zoom, and the voucher holders themselves. So with that, we'll get started with Ms. Stacy Pierce, and thank you for attending.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending our first annual Landlord Symposium. We plan on having one every year in order to keep our landlords informed of any and all changes that are happening, not on our local, but our county, state, and federal level. But also, we want to make sure that you're informed of everything that we can help provide to you and you can help provide to us. My name is Stacy Pierce, and I've been employed at HACM since June of 2020. I just recently joined the staff here in the Section 8 department as the supervisor. Today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the many programs offered here at HACM. As the symposium progresses, each of our presenters will go a bit more in depth in the vouchers offered to the people of our community and how it will benefit you as a current or potential new landlord in conjunction with us as the Housing Authority of Monterey County. Landlords such as yourselves, they're such a key component to the organization fund, and we want to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing to the less fortunate in our community. We help those from very low income to elderly to disabled to be able to afford housing in our community and the market we're serving. We have many different programs with different parameters to assist as many well-deserving clients as we possibly can. That's where you guys come in. We look forward to your help in helping us. The programs we utilize are funded primarily certain voucher holders, and connecting landlords with the prospective tenants. The many programs offered here are the Housing Choice Voucher, also known as an HCV, where the voucher holder has the opportunity to find their prospective landlord. The HCV voucher is one of the most convenient and most common. And the clients have entered themselves on a waiting list. And once their name comes up on the list, we send out an eligibility packet to see if they still meet that criteria and financial need to receive a voucher. Reason being, our wait lists are years long. So we have to continue to update the information, financial and vitals, as the client becomes finally available for a voucher. We also have a PBV voucher, also known as project-based voucher, which means that the voucher belongs to the property and not the client. And many of those are our larger apartment complexes that you see. They have both types of vouchers, project-based and housing choice. We do a screening for this particular voucher from an already established wait list to provide the prospective tenants to the property, and hence working hand in hand with our property managers on site there. We also have vouchers that are emergency housing vouchers for our homeless. We have our homeless set-aside vouchers, and we have mainstream vouchers. Each of these can offer landlord incentives if choosing to rent to one of these type of voucher holders. However, these applicants are also streamlined via referral process only. We also work hand in hand with our local Veterans Administration in providing VASH vouchers for our veterans here in our community. We have vouchers for formerly foster youth, known as our FYI, and finally a voucher called FAMU, which helps put families back together after they've been separated for a long period of time due to previous circumstances. These are also referred to us by outside agencies who work in hand with us. In these programs that I have mentioned, we received our funding from HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing Development. These funds are determined based on the number of vouchers we can put on the street, and then ultimately how many of those we can get housed up. Here at HACM, we currently have 3,321 clients leased in our programs, with approximately 150 vouchers out there still looking. We're in the process of interviewing and vouchering out another 1,051, but we must utilize these. The more vouchers we can get on the street, the more vouchers and money that will be allocated to our community to help increase housing in our county. But again, it's up to the landlords to help us. We need to help you to help us. Landlord participation in the HCV program is absolutely free and by choice. Landlords do not pay to maintain compliance with our programs. Although if we do find a deficiency in a unit after a physical inspection, we could charge a reinspection fee. However, that's uncommon, as most landlords work with us in a timely manner to rectify any violations. Salinas is in desperate need of housing and the developers of affordable housing, such as yourselves. Some prospects have been on the wait list for years due to the need for housing in our community. Hence, the reason we are here today is to implore more landlords like yourselves to join our community and encourage others that you may know who have rentals. Therefore, we implore you to help us help our community find decent, safe, sanitary housing. Thank you for your time, and please allow me to introduce to you Lorella Lozada, who will provide you with some insight into the benefits for landlords and the key program details. Unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Stacey.
Good morning, everybody. I don't have much to say. She said everything I was going to say. So I'm going to repeat it so that it's in your mind. My name is Loretta Lozada. I'm a housing program specialist. I've been with this agency total about 20 years. I have some information for you about programs. Stacey went over them, and I will repeat them with a little more detail. Well, first of all, I wanted to kind of thank you for being a landlord if you're community participants. This is a partnership. We also wanted, why are you important as a landlord? Because you provide or help the housing authority provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing for our families in Monterey County. So the housing authority is changing, is trying to provide landlords with better service, make it very smart, very efficient, and very convenient to accept the Housing Choice Voucher. For example, as Stacy mentioned, the payment standard, the current payment standard is very competitive with the open market. But I don't want to go ahead of myself because Diana Reese will be talking about payment standards in more detail. But I do want to say thank you. If you are a current landlord who is in partnership with the Housing Authority, and for those that are considering becoming a landlord and partnership and being a partner with the Housing Authority, we look forward to working with you. Also, I want to go over some of the programs that the Housing Authority has. I know Stacy went over them, but just so that you'll remember. First of all is the Housing Choice Voucher, which is formerly known as Section 8. We currently have are serving 321 families, and we have 150 that are out searching. Stacy mentioned the Emergency Homeless Voucher. This is a program that is referral based. We have partnered with Monterey County with different agencies, and these are our families that are challenged with different levels of homelessness. They're either, you know, they could be living in the streets, they could be living in their cars, or they could even be couch surfing. This program has landlord incentives, and at the end, I will kind of go over what those incentives are. We currently have 89 vouchers that have been issued that are very close to expiring. So we hope that if you come across one of those, a family that is under that program, that you would consider. The Homeless Set Aside Voucher, and that's the program that I'm assigned to. I've been working very close program for the last 5 years. Again, it's a referral-based program. We've partnered with agencies in Monterey County. It's a little bit different because these families are and project-based, which is designated to a location, and the Housing Authority does maintain the business for the project-based voucher. So you may ask yourself, that sounds very confusing. There's a lot of programs. How am I going to know which program is which? The voucher that the families receive look the same. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we try and make things very simple for the landlords. Once the document is submitted and you can see the voucher. It won't specifically say what program that they're in, but we take care of reviewing the file. And if we know that this family falls under one of these programs, we will reach out to you as a landlord and let you know that you're eligible. You may be eligible for an incentive. Let's see here. Okay, so just to go over the incentive amounts for the emergency homeless voucher is $1,500 for new landlords and $500 for returning landlords. So that's just something information. Is there any questions about the information that I gave you this morning?
We just repeat the amounts.
For the EHV, which is the emergency homeless voucher, it is $1,500, and for returning landlords, it's $500. So I wanted to say thank you. That's all that I had. And
Ms. Loretta,
oh,
if you don't mind, could you tell me how to become a landlord?
oh, sure. So there's a small packet. It's very simple. We usually have you complete a W-9, and we make it very simple. You can either choose to have electronic fund transferred. There's a form that you can fill out, or you can have a check. We take care of checking, title and home and all that other good stuff, and then we just have you fill that information. It's a pretty simple process. And the checks are normally sent out to me first, no later than the 5th.
My name is Mark Angel, and I guess I'm a returning landlord. Is that what we
Are
call it?
you current?
I'm currently a landlord. So, but I'm not sure what you mean by, I guess, because I'm only familiar with the stuff that I'm doing. This is another, the emergency housing is a special situation for people that are in need
Correct.
right now, and then you give a little bonus in addition to the first month's rent, last month's rent, et cetera.
Correct.
And that's what the incentive is. It's over and above the agreed upon.
Correct.
amount.
Yeah, and the families are referred to as they meet a criteria that falls within what I went over, and then there's only certain programs that have those incentives, which is the emergency relief voucher and the mainstream. The mainstream, we don't have numbers, as things are not finalized.
And what does mainstream mean?
Mainstream is it's between where the adults in the household is between the ages of 18 and 61, and they're either the head of household is disabled or a family member is disabled. Yeah, that they have to meet that criteria.
And there's a waiting list for those people, right?
They're pulled from our regular housing choice voucher. So our regular wait list, we look through those and we see. Yes.
Okay, so my question is, does it matter how long ago you had somebody, like, I've had somebody like, maybe like 10 years ago, and then if I become a landlord again, with Section 8, does that mean I'm a returning or I'm a
Return? Do they have any system? Yeah. You have, yeah, if you're in our system, then you're here. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
If a landlord was to take a foster youth for independence voucher, what happens after the youth age out?
They can continue to be housed. Yeah, they just, they meet the criteria for that program, but they can continue to be housed in the same unit.
So it stays as an FYI and it doesn't roll into an HCV?
It rolls into, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's a newer program to us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so now I will have Adriana Puente is the next, so she will be talking about policy.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Adriana Puente. I have been working for the agency for about 20 years or so. And I currently work in the housing programs department. Let me just reiterate that we are really delighted that you are all here today with us. Thank you very much for being here. So this morning I will be sharing some exciting updates, some program updates. In addition, we are pleased to announce we have been working on changes to best support you, our landlords. There will be a quiz at the end, so please make sure you do take good notes. Just kidding. No. With the recommendation of our executive director,
the approval of the Board of Commissioners, we were able to improve our policies based on the current needs of our community. What type of needs, you ask? Let's begin. I'll start off with voucher issuance. A voucher is issued to an applicant family after the housing authority has determined that the family is eligible for the program. Previously, the initial term of the voucher was for 90 days. And an additional 90-day extension were granted, provided that the applicant submitted documentation that they made a good faith effort to find a place to live. Also, there were no limits on the number of extensions that the housing authority could provide. The family needed to submit.
Could you speak up just a little louder?
Yes.
Thanks, ma'am.
You may hear me yell. The family needed to submit a request for tenancy approval within the 90-day period, unless the housing authority granted an extension. With the changes that have been implemented, the initial term of the voucher is now for 60 calendar days. And an additional 60-day extension may be granted if the applicant submits proof of their housing search. The family must submit a request for tenancy approval within the 90 days, within the 60-day period, unless the housing authority grants an extension. They can approve up to 2 extensions. If any additional extensions are requested, it would be considered a reasonable accommodation request. This change has helped with more vouchers being utilized and improve customer service to our landlords. And this is where you come in. You have the key in your hands to collaborate with us, help us provide quality housing for many residents in Monterey County. Which leads me to my next topic. Housing Choice Voucher payment standards. With some of the changes at the national level, we're able to submit a waiver to increase our payment standards. In addition, we were able to set the payment standards by zip. We understand that your business needs to be profitable for you to maintain your livelihood, and that certain areas demand more rent than others. With the payment standards set by zip code, we can closely match the housing market in each area throughout Monterey County. Another update I want to share with you is regarding our voucher occupancy guidelines. Our previous policy allowed for 1 bedroom for the head of household and spouse or partner. And 1 bedroom was assigned for each additional 2 persons. With the updated policy, this has changed so that 1 bedroom will be assigned for the head of household and spouse or partner, and 1 bedroom for each additional person. This means families will qualify for a higher number of bedrooms, and at the same time, it makes the vouchers more generous across the county to increase rents. And it also helps our voucher holders move into higher quality neighborhoods, your properties, and prevent overcrowding. Lastly, housing inspection. I have to be honest. The inspections process can be time consuming, which can impact the amount of time that it takes for a tenant to be allowed to move into a unit. It also increases the amount of time the landlords have to wait until they start receiving the housing assistance payments. We also previously had 1 inspector for all of Monterey County. With the changes,
The inspections are now being performed by the housing program specialists. This will ease the challenge of scheduling and conducting re-inspection. And to make things better, we have also been approved to use biannual remote video inspections. These changes will speed up the overall process, making inspections less costly for them.
Can I ask something real quick? So if you're my specialist and you would go check them.
I sure will. As I mentioned earlier, we are working and will continue working on changes to best support you, our partners. So before I turn it over to my colleague, we have something under our sleeves that we are working on. A landlord portal. Yes, you heard right. A landlord portal. We want to make the process of renting to the voucher holder more simple. The portal will streamline communication between you, the landlord, and the housing authority to allow you to manage your properties more efficiently. Stay tuned. We will continue to keep you posted on any upcoming changes. Thank you for listening. I was going to turn it over, but
I have a
yes.
question about the landlord portal now.
Yeah.
Will that include perhaps sample documents or legal requirements for communications between landlord and tenant?
Well, yes, that should include that as well. We're still in the beginning phases, so yes.
Right now, you know, you get it on Nolo Press, but it would be
Right.
nice to get it from,
Absolutely. So we will make a note of that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know, Nolo or other such.
Okay. Can you explain me the biannual remote inspections?
So we are now going to do biannual inspections, and we, as you mentioned, we have been approved to do remote, so it's virtual. So we just got approved. We're in the beginning stages, so we haven't gone through the whole process of the implementation. So once we go through that, we'll have more information for you.
So you cannot tell us anything about it right now. To me, remote means that
Virtual.
nobody goes into your home you're renting out, and I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So there would be someone, either the landlord or the tenant, who would be at the home, and they would be there with an electronic device. And we would be looking at the home. We would be guiding them through the home to inspect. And then the housing authority would be on the other end of the electronic device, kind of like we're doing now.
It would be like a FaceTime, you see, if you point at that outlet, and you see your outlets, and you see your walls, and you see your plumbing, look under the sink.
Yes.
Things like that. Okay.
Yes. And we will take any input.
Would that be optional?
Yes. Absolutely.
Do the tenants have the choice? Who has the decision on who does it, the landlord and the tenant? I would prefer the landlord guy to do the remote inspection.
Yes, we would definitely want the landlord to do it.
Okay,
Preferably, yes.
all right, that makes sense.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Oh, and how soon do you project this to happen?
Hopefully before the end of this fiscal year, unless
Before the end of the calendar year.
before the end.
Sorry. Would that be primarily for inspections when we have a house ready to rent and we're like
Fiscal year.
showing the house in its rentable condition, or would that be for the annual?
For the plan.
In the new move-ins. As soon as you get the rafter and they fill it out, what they would normally call for the inspection, they'll call to talk to you about doing the remote inspection.
Well, thank you for listening to me, and now I will turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Elizabeth Gonzalez.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good
Thank you again for being here. My name is Elizabeth Gonzalez. I am a housing program specialist, so I will be, if it's one of my tenants, I will be going out to do the inspection as well. I will give you an overview of the housing quality standard inspections. So goal again of the Housing Choice Voucher Program is to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing at an affordable cost to low-income families. Housing quality standards help HUD and local public housing authorities, PHAs, accomplish that goal by defining standard housing and establishing the minimum quality criteria necessary for the health and safety of the program participants. All HCV units must meet these housing quality standards to participate in the HCV program. The following are some examples of items an inspector will check during inspections. All major utilities must be on. The unit must have one working smoke alarm in each floor. All windows must function. Hot and cold running water. There is different kinds of inspections. One of them is the initial inspection. A voucher holder will indicate to the PHA that they desire to lease a specific unit. The voucher holder will give the landlord or manager the request for tenancy approval to complete. Once the PHA Public Housing Authority receives the request for tenancy approval, we will call the landlord or manager to schedule the inspection. This will usually happen within days or depending when the unit is available. Now we do have one person dedicated to complete only initial inspections, so that makes the process easier and faster. The unit must pass inspection before the execution of the HAP contract. If the unit fails, landlord or manager will be notified and will be given time to repair. If the unit passes inspection, landlord will need to submit the lease immediately so payment can process in a timely manner. The HAP contract and tenancy addendum will be mailed after. Biannual inspections will occur every 2 years. These are on housing units that are currently under lease and HCV participant family. Biannual inspections ensure that the HCV housing units continue to meet the HQS or housing quality standards throughout the tenancy of the HCV participant families. We do have special inspections. These may be complaint inspections or quality control inspections. Usually the complaint inspection is when the tenant calls us that there's something wrong with their unit. We will schedule inspection depending on if it's life-threatening or something that could wait. The timing of these inspections is determined whether the complaint is non-life-threatening or life-threatening concern. The letters notifying the landlords about biannual inspections do go out three to 4 weeks in advance. About 2 weeks are given to make any repairs. Landlords can self-certify when the repair is completed by providing an example by emails, photos of like there's no smoke alarm. Oh, the smoke alarm is now there. A work order. This helps us decrease the number of re-inspections. We don't have to go back to the unit physically. If they let us know by email, I did the repair. We all have roles and responsibilities. Some of the landlord responsibilities are taking preventive action to keep the unit safe, clean, responding to tenants' requests, enforcing any lease requirements for tenant maintenance. Tenants have responsibilities as well. Some of them are notifying their landlord about major repairs, following the lease requirements for keeping units clean and maintained, repairing tenant cost deficiencies, allowing an inspector into the unit. We also have our own responsibilities. We have to ensure that an inspection is conducted. We have to educate our tenants on family responsibilities and notify landlords when repairs are needed. HUD's mission is to create strong, suitable, and inclusive communities and quality, affordable homes for all. Any questions about the inspections?
Yeah, there's one part you said, tenant. You say quality inspections or complaint inspections when the tenants can call housing authority to complain.
Special inspections.
Yes, like that's called special. Yeah. How about if it's the other way around?
It could be a landlord as well. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tenant or landlords. Yes,
Chat would like to know if biannual inspections are every 2 years.
every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
We just started doing the biannual. We were doing annual inspections every year. So we just started doing biannuals.
Changed the
The streamline, I believe, just to make everything easier for everyone. We have more time to, yeah.
We do our own annual inspections.
Oh, yeah, and we just suggest that landlords keep on doing their own inspection. We just have to, this gives us more time to do more work at the office.
So my question also is, on special inspections, you said, so a landlord can request a special inspection also.
Yes.
So for instance, we go and we do an inspection and the place is a disaster.
Right.
We've asked them over and over again to clean it and they still don't, then we can contact you and say,
Yes.
hey, we need some help.
That is correct.
Okay.
We could go take a look at that.
What type of action is taken once it's determined that it's a resident issue?
Well, we tell the tenant or the landlord, depending on what it is, that the repairs have to be made.
Or what if it's like a housekeeping issue? What type of
We let them
action?
know as well. Yeah. We'll let them know and we'll give them 2 weeks. Usually it depends. We can give you more time depending on what it is, if it's a major repair.
And if they don't do anything after the 2 weeks, what type of action? do they take?
It depends if they want an extension on that. We do give them an extension. We'll give them another week or two. It just depends on what the repair is.
And then what happens if the week or two goes by and still nothing's been done and it's a tenant responsibility?
The responsibilities of to keep the unit. So we do, we don't want them to be off the program and we do tell them we need to follow the rules. As part of the rules of the program is to keep the unit, being safe and sanitary. So we do enforce that. We do tell them you don't want to lose your voucher, so you need to follow the program rules. Yes, oh, sorry. All the hands went up.
I think that as a landlord, I think a lot of us are probably challenged with the fact that it's very difficult to replace a tenant. Especially, when you don't have a blatant or flagrant violation of the lease, but you just have ongoing issues. You guys have a lot of tenants that really want houses. What are your teeth? And maybe somebody else might want to address this. What are the teeth you guys have to help us as landlords get the best tenants in there and to help us not have tenants that are repeat issues with us so that we can improve the quality of the tenants in our home that are on and get the people on your list that are really willing to take steps to maintain and not, I think that some tenants basically take it for granted. It's like, whatever, nobody can get rid of me. I'm here and I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, no, totally.
And so I think that's, I mean, if I've had that question a long time, so.
Yeah.
And I think it's not only
25 years.
program participants, but you as a landlord, I mean, it's just something that you get it with anyone out there.
Right,
So
but one of the advantages as a landlord at having your program is that there is actually something that the tenant has to lose when they leave your home. Because they know.
the advantages is that we go out to do the inspection.
And we do tell our clients that, they can't be in jeopardy with their assistance if they don't follow the rule, if they continue getting, repeated violations.
Okay, and to address his question, let me save Elizabeth for a second. The Housing Choice Voucher Program has very strict regulations that HUD has put in place. All of them have timelines on them. So those are the rules that they go by as issuing the voucher. That one of the reasons we're here today, so we can partner better as the housing authority and the landlord, because we do want to give you the best tenants and we want people on the program that are going to be good clients. So we depend heavily on the landlords to communicate with us. And let's just use housekeeping as an example. If you find out that one of your tenants is not a good housekeeper, they're tearing your unit up because you did an inspection, you should take pictures so that you'll have the pictures. You should have some type of written document where you warn them against this behavior dated that goes along with those pictures. And even if you're not going to take action, then you should contact a specialist and say, this is the issue that we're having with this particular tenant. Then the housing authority will follow suit. That way we're working together. So the tenant is hearing it from you, the tenant is hearing it from the housing authority. We're all working together to stress to this tenant the importance of what's going on, and then kind of having the same timeline. So we have to get them time to get it addressed. We have to give a little more time than you do, but that's something that we could talk about. If we feel like they have a reasonable accommodation to get an extension, which would come from maybe you didn't gave them 3 days on something that should at least been 7, or that you didn't give them a written document to tell them they needed to clean it. Everything was verbal. These are the type of things that hinder us from strengthening the program. So if we work together, even if it's a pretty good tenant, but they're, you know, in some ways tearing up the unit, then we can do the violation together. We can counsel them together. If it's still not satisfactory and we've documented it and you want to move them out, then you have to let us know you want to move that tenant out. And so when you do your move out, you provide the paperwork to the specialist. They will counsel them then on the move out. The person may lose the voucher depending on the damage, or they may just get the opportunity to move and start somewhere else. It really depends on the history, on the damage, you know, exactly what happened. But I think the main thing is us working together to do it. So the tenant is hearing the same thing from both parties. Because if I'm a tenant and my landlord is telling me and the housing authority is telling me, and I'm paying, you know, $300 and my rent $4,000, I'm gonna clean my unit. Okay, but if I'm not hearing anything from either one of the parties, and it's just basically, because even if it's the housing authority, they keep saying that we're not as strong on a housekeeping violation as the landlord, because they know we only control the voucher, we don't control the unit. So I think us working together again is the key to getting you better tenants and getting these type of problems resolved. Ma'am?
Okay, so this was a big problem for my unit that I've rented for over 20 years. Because of COVID, the inspectors were not able to come. So in my case, very briefly, I've never had mold or mildew in my unit. And I've made sure that it's always, the unit's always been taken care of. So the tenants allow, within a year, less than a year, they allowed mold and mildew first in the one bathroom, then the other bathroom, then the master bedroom, then the living room, then the dining area, then the kitchen. And I took pictures, I sent them here, I documented, I talked to, I didn't just talk, the tenants saw me taking the pictures and there was conversation, but there was no teeth from housing authority. I desperately could have, and mold and mildew is a health hazard. So I stress this to the tenants and to housing, but no teeth. I did not get the support, the backup that I needed from housing authority. And I finally ended up finding about this nonprofit, it's called Echo Housing, where they come in and they counsel. When the tenants heard that we were meeting, they agreed to meeting, with Echo Housing. The morning of that appointment with Echo Housing, which was 3.5 years after they started the mold, that's when they finally cleaned up. And Echo Housing said, "Oh, this is better than some of the other places I've seen." Well, why didn't they clean up as requested by the landlord? And if I had had what you're describing now as teeth, I think the mold would not have spread throughout 3/4 of the condo. And the condo was inspected by Housing Authority and by Housing Resource Center. Clean as a result.
Well,
Not one check off that anything had to be done.
First off, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but, and I don't mean this in a negative way. There are in your story a few little things that I think that maybe could have been handled differently, but were probably impacted by COVID. The housing authority is over the voucher. And our first priority is to the client. But we try to treat the client and the landlord equally. So when we did the initial inspection, and this is just our hypothetical for the example, I'm sure the unit passed or the person would not have been able to move in there. Now, COVID stopped a lot of housing authorities from doing inspections. If the tenant is the first person to bring the mold or mildew situation to the housing authorities' attention, then that's already a strike for the landlord, because at that point, we don't know if it was caused by the tenant. We don't know if your air conditioning and heating system caused it. You know, we don't know if you didn't have exhaust fans throughout the house. We're just kind of at a stage of, we just need to get it clean. So again, as soon as you noted that it was mold or mildew in there, hopefully that was before, you know, if that was before the tenant, then instead of waiting on like the tenant to come to the housing authority, did you report it, or was it reported by the tenant? Because see, when the tenant reported, then we're just all in, let's clean it up, let's get it fixed, let's keep this tenant in the unit. Is it severe enough where they have to move? That's when she was saying like the landlord gets so many days, you know, to straighten the problem out. But if you saw it first and you reported it and you said this is tenant caused, and this is not mold, this is mildew, and I've given them a housekeeping letter and I've told them they have, you know, 10 days to clean it up, whatever, then that's when the housing authority should have came on board and followed suit. And even if they couldn't do an inspection, maybe send out a letter or something, or have a Zoom meeting with the tenant. But when it comes to the repairs, and especially something like mold or mildew, we're really dependent on the landlords to report it, to let us know what's going on. Because if a tenant reports it, then we have to address it as the housing authority, which is, this is your unit, you need to get it fixed, or we won't be able to pay, because we don't know why it's there. We don't know, you know, what caused it. You probably know as the landlord that it wasn't there and it was tenant related, but that at that time, the housing authority doesn't know. So the only thing we can do is follow the HUD rules and regulations of a unit that has that, you know, condition, and what's the procedure to move forward. And that's why, again, I think it's important that we talk about this stuff here today, because you gotta be, you know, you gotta do stuff first. I'm not saying work against your tenants. I'm not saying that, because you should have a good relationship with your tenants. But don't depend on the housing authority for all the inspection needs, because we're only gonna come out once every 2 years. If something happens, like she said, you can do a special request. Hey, I've noticed this mildew in the bathroom. I need you to come out and do an inspection. And then that way, when we come out, a lot of landlords will come and meet us at the inspection. And you can say, this tenant caused this, you know, and you reported it. You're saying it's the tenant that caused it. At that point, we still need you to get it fixed, but we're holding the tenant more accountable. But when a tenant reports it, is, oh, I've been talking to my landlord, they won't fix it, my children have asthma, you know, all these type of conditions come up that the household never experienced before, which makes it an emergency on the housing authority end, and the only thing we can do is follow the HUD rules. But if we, again, work together and be proactive on these situations, to keep the tenant in line with what they're supposed to do, we can assist you better.
So if it happens again, you guys can come out,
You should contact us,
right?
with your, you gotta have your documents, have a
Right,
picture or
That's all
something,
done.
and you have to give a tenant a chance to clean it, but contact us at the same time. I've issued, you know, Ms. Boykin, 3 days to get this clean, or her utilities are off. So she's got 3 days to get them on or whatever. So the housing authority will know and they can help you with the situation. Because again, the longer you wait, the more it's favorable of the tenant, because then you seem like a unconcerned landlord, or maybe, you know, a landlord that doesn't have such quality housing, because at that point is whose fault is it? And ultimately it's your unit. So you just have to be a little more proactive, and then we can assist in any way that we can. And I just kind of came up to help Elizabeth. Need that we know. I think a little bit good.
I just had a question. You said to contact a housing specialist for an inspection, a special inspection. Who is the housing specialist?
That would be the person who would tell you, when your person first moved, well, you know what, I'm answering you yes and stuff. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
When the person first moves in, you'll get a letter and they'll have that person's name at the bottom, the housing program specialist or the worker.
Okay.
When it's an annual, then you'll notice too on the annual letters that we send out, our name is at the bottom of the letters.
Okay.
So I don't know who it is,
So technically, we're always gonna be working with you.
with the
Right.
workers.
It's just us two, we're gonna be working,
Yes.
and then this is
Yes.
my resident.
Yes, only we do have special programs that go to special workers. But if it's the regular HCV program, then yeah, it should be the same worker. Unless the worker leaves or something.
And then we get a letter.
I'm sorry?
Then with landlord, we get a letter if the housing specialist changes. for us. We'll be notified.
No, we don't have that in place.
No,
We don't.
no, but you'll be able to go on your portal and see.
Or you could always call. If you, yeah, you could always call and, you know, I have a property at this address, who's the worker or, yeah. Yes.
We had an inspection one time and the inspector comes in the house and sits down. Doesn't inspect the house, sits there, chit chats with the family, how's your children? Has everything written down. doesn't inspect it. And there was a fire in the house, grease fire in the kitchen. I told her, here's the fire department. Oh, how did that happen? Oh, no, grease fire wet. And I got a stool, I brought my own spatula, climbed up, scooped up all the crap on top of the cabinet. And the housing authority person didn't believe me. Didn't believe me. Had the fire department report, everything. My husband came to talk to somebody one time. Oh, Mr. Mendon, we can listen, but there's
Okay,
nothing.
that's my turn, and the same family, I go one time to clean the fire lane, clean red. And then the tenants and the daughter show up, and you say, what you doing here? You never cleaning in 20 years. And you doing work in my yard, even in my yard, in the fire lane area, and I say, oops. I have a picture, I have everything.
Every time I contact you,
I paint the house next day, all the way to the window of the dogs. Making ugly. But you guys don't help us at all.
not at all. I send you letters, I send them letters, and I speak to you on everything.
I have,
Never heard from you.
I have a picture here in my phone and the CD picture. Or something, tell me, do something
Oh, yeah.
about these cars. Section 8 people, $80,000 cars.
Mhm.
And
And you said that.
And that's when I did a talk by the guy, by the tenant. I went and say what he told me. And I said, oops, and the daughter stopped him, like he went attacking me. And the wife is my thing to say, what happened to you? I don't know what happened to him. Is he drunk?
And you said
They're
they're
not
your
very
client.
early in the morning. And I'm afraid to go to the house right now. But my garage door broke down. I go a special, like I've been doing that for 35 years to me, never have problems. You want to put this year in the garage. You want to find room.
And the inspector said, close them, clean the garage,
Yeah.
the firehouses.
And
They
then
never came back to check. They
The-
never didn't, you guys didn't do anything.
the other day they
Pull
called
the
me.
birds down because.
The
there's
traps and the
everything.
garage doors out and everything, the guy go fix it, $250 for us. And I told, what do you see it? I don't know if they're not there. But
Because
they
they
hang
hang
clothes and the tenant hit the barn, of course he come out of the truck. That guy doing 35 years job for me and he never have a problem with that. It's a company. It's not somebody working in my own. So you guys don't help us at all. I hired these people, these ugly men here for 27 years. I mean, I'm sorry, but 20 years. Go to the city, made me put the red line there for them to have to put in the fire lane.
I even threatened to evict them. And I got a call from you guys. What can we do to keep them there?
And let me come help Elizabeth. She's the expert, but just like I'm saying, we need to work together. Sometimes, different people need to come up because we're a team. So first off, we do help the clients and we are client driven, but we are also landlord driven. Now, I cannot help what happened in the past. Maybe we had a bad staff person. Maybe it was other circumstances, I don't know. But the landlord has the power. Don't threaten to evict them. They're doing things like that. Evict them.
No, I
Call-
did.
call
I
the
sent them an
police
eviction
and,
letter.
do
You guys called me.
We have to. It's a HUD regulation. We have to call. We have to ask if it's a way to save the tenant. Because most people who get a voucher, they get it because they're not stable or financially they don't meet the needs of the market area they live in. So we have to do these things to show that we're in compliance and we did try to address the situation. It doesn't mean you have to keep the tenant. I hate to kind of say it, but it's like a check off on a box for us to show that we're doing everything that we are supposed to do for the program, so we can keep the program, so we can help the people who need help. But when you have a tenant like that, call the police on them, get your police report, send them police report, and just evict them. And the housing authority will follow suit. It's only so much that we can do. Really, if we piggyback off what you do, because again, it's your unit and it's your lease that tells them all the violations. So if you put in your lease, don't park on the street, and they park on the street, you give them a violation for that. If your lease say you get one violation, then you get evicted. Next time they do it, you evict them. And then the specialist here is going to read the lease and say they are in compliance with the lease. You will maintain your landlordship on the program, and that person will have to go find somewhere else if they are, entitled to even keep the voucher. But again, I've heard stories like that happen before. And that's one of the reasons we're here today, because we just need to work together better. We need to really form a partnership. We need to assist each other. We don't have all the power. You don't have all the power, but you have the majority of it. But if we work together, we can get tenants like this and we can remove them from the program, so we can help somebody who needs help. And we streamlining that, so you'll have one person to call, one person to fill your documents, so it won't kind of get lost in the shuffle on our end. But then if this happened during COVID, and this is not an excuse, but like during the COVID time, HUD put out so many new regulations and waivers. It really kind of tied the housing authority's hand. They just released them in the latter part of last year. And that's why you might start seeing some different things now as being a landlord and working with the different housing authorities. But we just got to work together better. And if it's a housing authority that's a employee, there's a problem, you need to report them so that we can address that employee here. Because they're here to do a service for the community. They have a job that they're supposed to be performing. And if they're not doing that, then their supervisors need to know, so we can take action and we can get somebody who is going to do it and is going to take it seriously. But it's just going to take communication, and for us to try to get on the same page. Ma'am?
How do you screen them? I've had owners ask me, we screen tenants, but they ask, how does, the
eligibility?
Yeah, like he mentioned, there was an $80,000 car parked in the driveway. So I'm just curious what type of screening, if any, is done at your end before they come to us.
They go through a screening process with our eligibility team, and it follows the HUD rules and regulations as far as how much income the family can have, how many people are in that family, how much their assets can be worth.
And they bring additional folks in after what, if they bring additional folks in?
They're supposed to come and report it so that we can.
Are they screened also then at that point?
If they're 18
the incoming?
years or older.
Oh, 18 years old, they're screened again. And if they make enough money, how does that affect the person in there?
The tenant portion of it really go up.
Okay.
So they have to report it to us.
Okay.
If they don't report it to us, then we'll find out at their annual recertification, because we have some systems we can use. But if a person moves in your unit in March, and then they're not on our radar until next year, March, for recertification, because our monies are anticipated for 12 months. So if something happened between that 12 months, they get another job or more people moving the unit or whatever, if they don't report it, we won't know.
How about vice versa? So what if, say they have children and they've been there for a while and the children are 18, they've all moved out. So now you've got a one person in a 2 or 3 bedroom home. Am I supposed to call you guys and say,
again, we find out at the annual recertification, but we do have some tenants that actually, they follow all the rules. They come to report changes within 10 to 14 days. But some do not, and so we find that at the annual cert. If you have a problem with a tenant and it's something you feel like you need to report, then you would have to report it for us to be aware of it.
So I just say, hey, guess what? They all moved out. She's there by herself and she's still in a 3 bedroom.
You can.
Okay, just wanted, I'm just trying to
But
see what the program's all about.
They still qualify to be in that unit.
Okay,
The families, depending on the rent and the income they have.
okay.
And my last comment, I'm gonna sit back down again. The area median income here is very high for Monterey. So it's possible for somebody to have $100,000 car. Because we can't say exactly how they paid for that car or what their purchase price was and still
Different
qualify
names.
for a voucher, because the voucher goes on the income and the family size for the area. So if you look at the AMI on the website, I'm not sure, what is it up there, 70, 60,000, something like that. So that's the average for the family. So they might have, expensive things, and a lot of times, and the clients, because they have a lower rent and because they get that assistance, sometimes they can't splurge on things that normally you wouldn't expect them to be able to purchase. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they have more income or more trackable income. So that's where it comes in for the certification. And like we look at the EIV and all of this type of stuff and kind of, figure out what's going on. But we do an in-depth search as much as the law allows us to look at.
Are background checks performed on tenants?
Yes, only background checks. We don't do credit checks. So that's something the landlord would do. I would do that if I was a landlord. Oh, sorry. Oh, here.
Quick question,
Yes.
every time a tenant changes a job and we don't know about it, are they supposed to tell us?
No, they're supposed to tell us.
They tell you. And in an emergency, if there's an emergency and I have to contact this person at work and I call a number where they don't work anymore, whose responsibility is that?
It's the tenant's responsibility to provide you that information if they want to. They don't have to.
Doesn't make sense.
Because we can't give you that information. Like if you call us and you want like where the person works, we can't give you that.
Right, but when
information.
they fill out their application,
They're supposed to keep you updated.
they're supposed to keep us
Yeah.
updated.
Yeah,
Okay.
some will and some won't.
Can I just add very quick? So I think, just my experience, that communication with your teams, I think I can communicate really well, your questions. So maybe from the get-go, letting them know that's important. Phone changes, emergencies, if you have an emergency section, how they can provide you additional numbers, but this number can be. So yeah, I have some, definitely have, always have. a contact number.
What is involved in a background check? What items do you check?
I don't work in that department, so I don't know if things have changed. I don't know, it's another department.
Background checks. Some programs have different criteria, but we do a national and local background check. We check for sex offender status, felonies, things of that nature. You also have to remember too, this is a government program. So if somebody had a misdemeanor 10 years ago, it is possible for them to still qualify if they haven't had any activity other than that one misdemeanor. So all the parameters are set in the computer system per program so that we don't violate the rights and we don't abuse the rules that we got from HUD. And then it either tells us if they pass or fail. Anyone that fails, they are not eligible to participate in the program.
So anybody with a felony would not be able to qualify.
Felonies have timelines too, but most time a felony will get you knocked out. But it depends on the time frame, because you might have had a felony 20 years ago. So then the system will look and see, has anything else happened? If that was the only thing that happened, it's possible you could still qualify, depending on what type of felony it was. But sex offenders are always banned. It doesn't matter, that's a lifetime ban. Distribution of drugs, you would get banned for 10 years most of the time. Especially if it was on a HUD site or a subsidized unit. So it's just different criteria because HUD makes all these rules. They're trying to give the families a chance to do better, and a lot do. There are a lot of things about Section 8. It has a very negative connotation, but it's a lot of people that really, that program helps them. They achieve a lot. They go on to come off the program. But unfortunately, you don't really hear about them as much as you do about the negative people that impact the program in the image.
What about, you said drug distribution, what about drugs?
Depends on how the court labeled it. Because if it's drug use, is that really a crime or is that a addiction? So it depends on what the court says, and then it'll, go out there. If it's a misdemeanor, if it's a felony, or if it might not even be on there because maybe they saw them as a victim that needed help to go to rehab. So it just depends on whatever the court puts on the background. Somebody back there had their hand up.
Yeah, I have a question about the vouchers. So I get elderly and disabled folks having them indefinitely, but is there a timeline for folks who are really just trying to get on their feet? Like, do they have a certain amount of time to, hopefully get out of their current situation so that vouchers can then cycle on to the next folks that need them just to get on their feet?
Okay, well, I guess we should be like a little myth busters for the voucher program, so we'll kind of do that real quick. First off, the voucher program is based on finances. So as long as you financially qualify, you can get the assistance. So there's no time limit on that. It's just based on the finances. A lot of people think that you can't be married and get a voucher. You can be a married family or a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. It's just the family composition and then the finances of the family. The only timeline on any type of voucher, you can use a voucher to purchase a home. And if you use your voucher to purchase a home, if you're elderly or disabled, to pay for your home for 30 years. But if you are just a regular family member, then they can pay up to 15 years or until you financially cycle out of the program.
Okay, thanks.
My question is there any time that a resident is responsible for repairing or fixing anything within?
Yes.
Well, for example, this is a good example I'm gonna say, like, for example, let's just say somebody moves into my home and my house is not infested with cockroaches. And then they stay there for a while and then all of a sudden my house is infested with cockroaches or something like that. Would they be responsible for having it completely take care of something like that? No? That's my responsibility. It's just a question. I don't know.
Well, it depends, right? Did you know that they were a bad housekeeper? Did you know when you noticed the infestation, did you warn the tenant that it was due to their housekeeping habits and let the housing authority know? See, again, it's back to that landlord communication.
So
if the tenant bring it and they got pictures and it's an infestation in the unit, then the housing authority is gonna call the landlord and say, hey, you got an infestation. You've got to mediate this because this person has to have quality, safe and sanitary living conditions. If the landlord brings it to the housing authority attention, hey, Miss such and such, you got a housekeeping violation. It's resulted in these, rodents being in the unit. You have so many days to get it cleaned or whatever, and we'll be back to check. And if you haven't, then this is the repercussion. So, it's just kind of.
in the past, I've had property managers in their contract, they put that, if during the time that they're there, this happens, the tenant is responsible, right? They put that in the contract, in their contract. But let's just say it's not cockroaches and it's not infested. When is a tenant responsible to fix something within? Let's just talk about other stuff, not just that.
Well, when we do an inspection, we do send out a letter and let the landlord and tenant know what the deficiencies are. We try when we go out there, try to tell a tenant, if it's housekeeping, you need to. But the landlord and tenant again have to work together to fix the repairs or we can't say, oh, these are your responsibility and these are your
So
responsibility.
if it's tenant caused, then the tenant is responsible.
Yes.
What you're saying.
Yes.
Yes.
But do you make that, do you state that in the letter that you send out to the tenant? You make that clear to them that the tenant has to clean up.
If it's obvious that it was tenant caused, like for example, let's say that there's a hole in the wall.
Mhm.
then yes, we'll let the tenant know, the family know that it's the responsibility to repair it.
So I should have gotten a letter like that, you know, for 3.5 years if the mold started and just spread throughout the house. I should have gotten a letter like that, or the tenant should have gotten a letter. Right?
If there was an inspection done, usually a letter should have been sent out saying that there was, more, mildew or mold in
Tenant clause.
well, we can't put tenant clause, we just specify that there is an issue, regarding the.
Well, that never happened.
Can I just add something?
1 second. I know we got a lot of interesting questions. And this is good that we engage, and I think we're making some progress. But Paul, Elizabeth, we need to move on to Diane, because Diane is the person that you really want to talk to today. She's the one that determines how much rent you get. Thank you.
There's more time at the end for questions.
Yeah. We don't need to get back on it, but I want to make sure Diane.
I have more individual questions.
Yeah.
Poor Diane.
Well, there goes my joke. Good morning, welcome to the Housing Authority. My name is Diana Ruiz. I've been working here for 25 years. Yes, I was hired when I was 10. So, okay, so who wants more money?
Everybody.
I'm the money lady. Okay, so I'm here to talk about payment standards and rent reasonableness. So what is a payment standard? A payment standard are used to calculate the housing assistance payment that the housing authority will pay to the owner on behalf of the family. The payment standard is the maximum monthly amount of assistance a family can receive from the Housing Choice Voucher program. Payment standards are not approved rents. Currently, our payment standards are approved and divided by zip code through the Monterey County. We have it up. I know it's sorry, it's in and so now the important question. So how do we approve the rents? How do we approve the rents? We approve the rents by conducting a rent reasonable. A rent reasonable is a rent survey to determine whether the proposed rent is reasonable compared to similar unassisted units within the area of where the unit is located. We use a HUD-approved software called Go Section 8. We enter the unit information provided from the request for tenancy approval, and Go Section 8 will use real-time comparable rental data and automatically calculate the rent reasonable report and give us the approved rents based on 3 comparable units. The main factors used for the rent surveys are the location, the quality, the size, type of unit, if it's a house, condo, apartment, etc., the age of the unit, amenities, housing services, maintenance, utilities that the owner will provide under the lease. Now let's talk about rent increases. Rent increases. Rent increases can be requested once a year, and the rents are approved by the rent reasonable rule. Thumb of rule. Rent increases over time should be similar increases charged to unassisted tenants who have lived in their unit for about the same period of time. For the same period of time. You cannot compare the rent to a tenant who has lived in their unit for 5 years to a tenant who's just moving in. Because I do get a lot of questions like that from owners, and they call and they say, well, my tenant has been living there for 10 years, but 3 houses down the road, their rent is higher. They just moved in and their rent is higher. Yes, the rent, there will be a big difference because your tenant has been there for a longer time and the market is always changing. So anytime you're going to get a new client, the rent's always going to be a little bit higher.
So that's kind of something to keep in mind, because some of the landlords call us and say, well, I want to get what they're getting too. And it's like, that could be a $200 to $600 increase all at once. And I know if the family wasn't in assistance, it can be a hardship for them to receive such a high increase. And the state of California does have some laws in regards to how much it can be increased. And that's something that we ask you as a landlord to kind of get legal advice if your unit would fall under the California law, the California
AB 1482.
Thank you. If your unit would fall under, or if it's exempt, because there's a lot of little things that they look into to see if you're exempt from that AB 1482. The owner must submit a written 60-day notice requesting the rent increase. The letter needs to be addressed to the tenant and a CC to the housing authority. But remember, all rent adjustments will be effective the first of the month following the 60-day calendar day after HACM receives the request, or the day specified by the owner. Some owners think that they can go ahead and notify their tenant on the 1st, and then days later they submit it to the housing authority, and they want it to still take effect within 60 days. It doesn't work that way. If we start counting the 60 days as of when we received it too. So we recommend for you to mail out the notice at the same time, or you can email them, fax them, or drop them off. But they have to be 60 days prior to the effective date of the rent increase. It is the owner's responsibility to receive the copy to the housing authority. We have some owners that say, well, I gave it to my tenant, but the tenant never submitted it to us, so we weren't aware, and then we're getting the call, well, I submitted a rent increase and I haven't received anything. So it is the owner's responsibility to submit it to us.
I have a question about the first.
Yes.
Where do we send that to? Is there a link that we can send it to?
Yeah. And I'll go over it right now.
Cool.
Rent increases can be submitted either via mail, fax, email, or you can drop them off here at the office. We do have an email address where you can submit the rent increases and or any changes a landlord may have, for example, change of address, change of ownership, or direct deposit. That email address is leasing department, which is DEPT at hamonterey.org. There is 3 of us that go over that email. So any rent increases, any leases, any changes, somebody will receive it and we'll go ahead and make the appropriate changes.
Thanks.
It's leasing department, DEPT at HA Monterey. Okay, I have some right here too. But these are related. Well, I do have some copies, and I do have it highlighted where you can send it to me. Yes.
2-part question. I bought a property 2+ years ago with 3 Section 8 tenants. The rent is below market rate. How can I increase the rent to market rate? And then followed up with, does this mean I can decide on what the rent increase is as long as I follow the AB 1482 regulations?
Correct. So the landlord decides what the rent is as long as he follows the regulation. All he has to do is submit a 60-day notice in writing. So once, and I'm the one that kind of looks over all the rent increases. So once I receive it, then I'll make sure that it does align with what the rule is and that it is within the 60 days. And then I'll do the rent reasonableness just to make sure that we can approve the rent that the landlord's asking for, and then we'll go ahead and process it. Yes.
Can I get that that email so I can put it in the chat? Can I?
What's it?
Never mind.
Okay. So saying I do have the form here where it has all the information, and if you guys are interested. Yeah, it was some of the forms that I had. This is the one that I had it highlighted, but they beat me to it, so it's not highlighted. Sorry. We're talking about direct deposit. The housing authority does offer direct deposit. And if you are interested, there is a form that needs to be filled out. It's a simple question, a form just giving us the information regarding your bank. We need a copy of a voided check, and then we can go ahead and start the process of the direct deposit. HACM payments are approved and processed on the first business day of each month. With a direct deposit, you will get your money sooner. Once the payment is approved and is processed, then we also send out an email and give you a receipt, a breakdown of what the payments are. In case you have one tenant, then it will give you the breakdown. Okay, and we do encourage for the direct deposit because we're doing changes here at the Housing Authority, and we're working on adding the landlord portal. I think it'll just make it just a little bit more easier. With the landlord portal, it'll be easier way for you to manage your units and have access to their, your current information. It will provide information regarding the payments, inspections, repairs needed, landlord forms, and to request a rent increase. And we anticipated having it running hopefully by the next calendar year. Okay, any questions? Any questions regarding the money?
So I'm not trying, I don't have any Section 8 tenants right now, but when somebody moves into your house, do you receive rent? Like, let's say they move in on the first or they move in on whatever, do I receive rent in the rears or?
Good question. Yes, good question. I was gonna cover that. So the first payment might be delayed. It can take a week, a few weeks, just because we only process payments twice a month.
Okay.
It's always only on the 1st and on the 15th of each month. So depending on when we start the lease, and depending on how soon we get a copy of the lease from the landlord will depend how we will be able to enter all the information in the system to submit the payments. But we will prorate the amount as to when the tenant moved in. So let's say that the tenant moved in on August the 5th. But we didn't get any paperwork until after the 15th. Then that means we won't be able to make the payment until September the 1st. So you'll get your prorated amount for August and then the September payment.
So you get security deposit?
No, that is, the Housing Authority doesn't help with the security deposit. That's between the tenant and the landlord. We only have 2 programs so far, which is the EHV and the mainstream that do offer direct security deposits. So it would be, so we recommend for us, well, we let our clients know that once they turn in the request for tenancy approval, we schedule the inspection and the inspection passes. Once they sign the lease, they can go ahead and pay for the security deposit. And we let them know that that's their responsibility. Now it's up to the owner if because we know it's a business for you, if you want the money up front or if you're willing to receive it in payments. Just to kind of make it easier with these families. Yes.
What is the maximum increase permitted? What would be the rule or formula?
There's really no maximum. I mean, I base it first. I mean, we have to look if the house falls under the AB 1482, which currently right now it's 9.2 maximum once a year. And if the unit is exempt, then that's when we go by the rent reasonable. So once the landlord lets me know how much they're asking for, I'll go ahead and do the rent survey. As long as I'm able to get 3 comparable units, and then I can go ahead and approve the rent. If I can't approve what you're asking for, then I'll let you know I can't approve this amount, but we can go ahead and approve this based on the rent reasonable rule.
The formula for that under AB 1482 is 5% plus CPI. And that's how she got to the current 9.2. So, and there's a cap of 10%.
Right, and that just started effective this August, right?
That's
And I
correct.
think it's every year in August when it's updated. Yes, sir.
So that negotiation of what's acceptable happened within that 60-day period. So it's you've already been notified of, say, we want to do a 10% rent increase. You get back to it and say, you know, you can only do 7.3. Is that acceptable? We say, okay, that's acceptable. We still move on to that. That's part of that 60
Yeah,
days,
it is.
right?
Yes. So yeah, once I get your notice, then as at that time, the time starts running. So once the negotiation comes, it's still within those 60 days. Yes.
So we have a person that comes into our apartment, they want to rent. Do we have them apply and do the application fee and the security deposit and then get in touch with you or get in touch with you first to see if they qualify for our rent amounts?
I mean, it's up to you. We do work closely with some property managements, and once they get a family who's under the program, they contact us just to make sure that they do qualify for it. And if they do, then they go ahead and move forward and ask for the either holding fee or security deposit. Some property management, they just go ahead and just do their regular business of asking for the application fee and doing the credit check before they submit the request for tenants.
So if we would call you, who would we ask for here? Yeah, see if they qualify.
If it's a new,
we're getting a lot of calls for Section 8 at our property.
You can contact me, and we could, I can make sure that the family does qualify, but if it's an existing family who is just living what we call in between, just from one unit to another, then you would need to contact the specialist. Usually you would ask the family if they're new to the program, if they just received their voucher, or if they're moving, they're in between from one unit to another, and that way you know who.
Unit from our property.
No, just in general, they can be moving from one property to a different property.
They come with a voucher.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a question. Let's say you have a client that is paying $1,000 for a house. And the max, it's 10%, right?
It's the 9 point, currently right now.
Let's say 10%.